Guys, welcome to Aussie Wristwatch. I'm Jessica Liley, and today I am going to take us on a journey over about, I think it's 5 parts, so bear with me. Not all today, obviously, but we're going to start the journey today, and we're going to talk about dive watches and the not so definitive or comprehensive list, but a pretty bloody good one. So before we get started, a couple of things. Please hit the like button and subscribe. It helps me out immensely. Wrist check today, Omega Seamaster 300M, one of my favorite watches, in the titanium and ceramic, and it's 39.5 millimeters in diameter, so it's one of the bigger sizes in the collection of the Omegas, not of my overall collection. In fact, it's one of the smaller of my collection. Anyway, let's roll the intro. Before we get started, two things actually. First of all, I'm not going to review every watch on this list. I'm just going to go through them at a high level because I love dive watches. You all know I'm not a diver, but I love dive watches. So I wanted to put a list together based on what I've seen out in the wild of the internet. And also what you've given me as a list on a number of comments over a number of videos, which I've been keeping track of. So there'll be a few of those sprinkled throughout. So what makes a dive watch? We've covered this very briefly in another video, but in essence, must be a minimum of 100 meters water resistant. Generally, I think you'll find they're about 200 to 300 meters water resistant. There are some watches that are even on one of these lists which are hundreds and hundreds of meters water resistant, but generally you'll find they're 200 to 300. They must be able to measure time, and not in the sense of a watch, people, but usually through the bezel and the rotating bezel as such, in order to measure time underwater and oxygen. That is one of the features of a dive watch. Now, I've gotten into a whole conversation about that in the past of, let's use equipment rather than a watch, but at the end of the day, it's still there for that purpose, right? And they must have lume because you have to be able to read them underwater, which is generally dark and murky. So they're kind of like the key features of a dive watch, which I actually didn't know that that's what a dive watch needed to have until I did a video recently on another dive watch and thought I better check what actually a dive watch is. So there, me learning again, guys, and you guys sitting there going, who is this chick? Okay, let's get started. So today I'm going to go through a list of watches that are under 1,000 Australian dollars. Now, you've got to give me a little bit of leeway with all of these lists in terms of cost because, you know, there's fluctuations in the exchange rates. So something might be slightly under and might be slightly over depending on what week it is. But just generally speaking, they're going to be under $1,000 or whatever I've done as the window, right? So again, I want to make it really clear, it's not an exhaustive list. They're not in any particular order. I'm not saying they're my favorites or my least favorites. I'm just giving you a list of dive watches of, you know, good to exceptional quality based on just the research I've done. Okay, so let's start. Seiko Prospex is the first one. SRPH15, and it's about $800 and it's water resistant to 200 meters. Now, the Seiko have long been a staple watch in any affordable collection, and the Prospex Turtle line is one of those that's very cool and very much the adventure watch. It's sized at 42.4 millimeters with, as I said, the water resistance is around 200. So yeah, Seiko makes some pretty awesome watches for a price point, I've got to say. So check that one out. The next one is the Baltic Aquasphere, which I know I've said incorrectly. How do you say that? Aquascape? Aquasafe? Who cares? It's $1,000, 300 meters water resistant. Watch enthusiasts love the Baltic watch. I'm just starting to understand it and learn a bit about it. But you know, they've got a bit of a pizzazz to their designs, I guess. and they kind of mix vintage aesthetic with modern aesthetic, and it kind of means that it's got a very unique feel and style to it that, I mean, I kind of like it, and it's obviously why a lot of other people do as well. So this one has a very vintage influence to it. It's 41 millimeters, 300 meter, water resistant, and it's got the modest price of, it's $1,000 Australian, so it's starting to get up there, but it's still an affordable watch. Next one is the Tissot Seastar 1000 Powermatic 80, and it's about $840 and 300 meters water resistant. It's one of the more affordable watches obviously on the list, and it features a spec list that comes in a 43 millimeter stainless steel watch, 5-link bracelet, classic, and allows for the comfortable fit, and you know, you can pick it up with a pretty modest price. Next one, Citizen ProMaster Dive, $510, 200 meters water resistant. And it's a pretty popular watch from what I can ascertain online, and that would be because it is a good quality dive watch at a rock bottom price. It's 44 millimeters stainless steel, so it's on the larger size, but not for me, but for some. So it's just a tad bigger than this, basically. You know, and it's $500, so it's a pretty solid watch. The next one is the Bulova. It's $870 approximately. And this one, because sometimes I forget to change, it's 666 feet. Shall we Google what that is in meters? Because I don't know why we all can't just use the metric system. And I know every American out there is going, why do we need to use the metric system? 66 feet is, hey, it's 200 meters. It's 200 meters. Okay, I'll remember that for next time. Okay, the Bulova Devil Diver was first released in 1968. The vintage Devil Divers became popular through the watching community. Now, the Bulova reintroduced the line in 2018, and they slimmed down the case to 41 millimeters and made the watch feel even more retro with their Archive series model in an orange dial. The watch is nicknamed the Devil Diver because it's water resistant to an infamous 666 feet. Aha! The turquoise case plays into the vintage 1970s look, and it's just a great looking watch. I think they've got it right there. So $870 Australian, 666 Devil Diver, or just over 200 meters water resistant. I mean, someone's having a bit of good old fun there. Orient is the next one on the list. So Orient watches are a watch that I actually don't know a lot about, but I've seen them a lot now that I've started getting onto forums, and I've been reading articles, and I've actually watched videos from other watch enthusiasts or genuine, like when I say collector, I mean someone who actually knows something about watches and has like hundreds of them, because that's not quite me yet. And the Orient always comes up. Now, this Orient in particular is the Orient Kamazu, and it's 200 meters water resistant, 41.8 millimeter dial, and it's basically, from what I can gather online in the research, it's a solid dive watch from the Orient brand, and it's quite popular. Look, it's stainless steel bracelet. It has lume legibility that people say is pretty amazing for the price point. And it's a watch that people talk about online as something that they must add to their collection, and it's got staying power. So that's on the list. Luminox Navy Seal, $500, 200 meter water resistant. I've talked about a version of this watch in a separate video. You guys know I love this watch. It's probably not the best diver's watch out there, but it's a robust activity / adventurer watch and tool watch, and it's pretty cool for the price, you know, and it's got the links to the Navy SEALs, and it's just, I mean, it's a dude's watch, and I love it. But they're like, that's a handful of watches that basically sit under $1,000 that meet the criteria for a dive watch, that have totally different looks. So your Navy Seal looks completely different to your Orient, to your Bulova, to all of them, right? So there is a watch in that price bracket at a super good quality for a super cool price. The next list, we're going to do $1,000 to $3,000, which again is a pretty cool price point for people. I'm not going to say most, because that's being very, that's generalizing a little bit too much, I think, and speaking for people. But under $1,000 for a watch of any decent quality, I think is pretty cool. I mean, that's the kind of list I really needed like 15 years ago when I was starting out, or 20 years ago actually when I was starting out, because I am older than I look, hopefully. And I mean, if I had lists like this back then, I would have some really cool watches now, like, because I would have been collecting proper watches back then. And I've talked about this before, you know, like, I've got like 4 Kenneth Coles or 5 Kenneth Coles downstairs. Like, I wouldn't fucking wear them now. They look really nice. But imagine if I had some Seikos in there, or even a few Casios, and then, you know, throw in like a, even the bloody Luminox Navy Seal, or like the Bulova, or again, a Seiko. But these watches, for the price point, like, I should have been buying these watches back then. So please, if you're watching this channel and you're only just starting out, please heed my advice. Buy some good quality, also epic looking watches in these price points to start the collection if that's what you're after. Don't go for the shiny pretty thing in the department store that's just not the best quality watch. Oh, I really do lament that, don't I, in hindsight? But it doesn't matter. Let me know what you think about those watches that I've got on the list. If I've missed something glaringly obvious to you, remembering that it's got to be under 1,000 Australian dollars for this list, let me know. I know you will. And we'll put it on a list for another day. If there's anything in that list that you want me to like look at and review properly, tell me, and I'll see if I can get my hands on it. And if I can't get my hands on it, maybe I'll just do a review on the papers. But yeah, anyway, thanks guys. Until next time.